When someone realizes your value too late, it's never loud. It doesn't come with apologies that fix everything. It comes as silence that echoes what they lost. Listen carefully. There was a time when your presence felt ordinary to them. Your messages were expected, your effort predictable, your love almost invisible. You were there, consistently, quietly, fully, and that's exactly why they underestimated you. Because humans have a strange blindness. We don't always recognize value while it's still within our reach. We recognize it when it's gone. Now imagine this. One day, you stop explaining, you stop waiting, you stop showing up in the same way, and suddenly, the space you leave behind starts speaking louder than you ever did. That's when it begins, not your realization, theirs. A slow, uncomfortable awareness that what they once had was rare. That your patience wasn't weakness. Your loyalty wasn't replaceable. Your presence wasn't guaranteed, but here's the part no one talks about. By the time they finally see your worth, you've already learned to live without their validation, and in that quiet shift, everything changes. Because when someone realizes your value too late, they don't just lose you, they lose the version of you that once chose them. Part 1. The illusion of you'll always be there. There's a dangerous illusion that quietly destroys meaningful connections. The belief that someone will always be there. It doesn't happen overnight. It builds slowly through routine, familiarity, and emotional comfort. You become part of their daily life in such a natural way that your presence stops feeling like a gift and starts feeling like a given. And that's where the shift begins. They stop noticing the effort behind your consistency. They stop appreciating the silence you break just to check on them. They stop valuing the emotional space you hold because it's always been there, like oxygen, essential but unnoticed. Carl Jung once said, "The shoe that fits one person pinches another." And sometimes people only realize how perfectly you fit their life when they try to replace you, and nothing feels the same. Think about it. When something is always available, the mind stops assigning urgency to it. This is why people delay appreciation. They assume there will always be another chance, another conversation, another moment to fix things. But life doesn't work that way. Time doesn't pause for realization, and people don't stay the same forever. The version of you that tolerated being taken for granted, that stayed patient, that kept choosing them despite everything, that version has an expiration date, because awareness changes you, and once you see your own worth clearly, you stop offering it where it's not recognized. That's when the illusion breaks, not for you, for them, because the moment you stop showing up the same way, they're forced to confront something they've been avoiding all along. Your absence has weight, and suddenly, what they thought was permanent feels painfully temporary. Part 2. The silence that teaches what words never could. There comes a point where words lose their power. Not because you don't have anything left to say, but because you've already said too much to someone who wasn't truly listening. You explained your feelings, you expressed your needs, you gave them clarity, honesty, vulnerability, and still, nothing changed. So one day, something inside you shifts. You don't argue anymore, you don't chase closure, you don't try to make them understand. You just go quiet. And that's silence. It's not weakness, it's awareness. Friedrich Nietzsche once said, "All things are subject to interpretation. Whichever interpretation prevails at a given time is a function of power and not truth." For so long, they interpreted your patience as dependence, your forgiveness as permission, your presence as something they didn't have to earn. But silence changes the narrative, because now there's nothing left for them to misinterpret. No reassurance, no emotional availability, no version of you trying to hold everything together. Just absence. And absence has a way of revealing truth that words never could. It creates space, and in that space, reality becomes louder. They start replaying conversations, They notice the effort you made. They feel the emotional gap you once filled without being asked. It's ironic, isn't it? When you were speaking, they didn't listen, but when you stop, they finally start hearing you. Not through your voice, but through your absence. Because silence forces reflection, and reflection forces realization. But here's the deeper truth. Your silence isn't meant to teach them, it's meant to free you. Free you from over-explaining, free you from trying to be understood by someone unwilling to understand. Free you from shrinking your needs just to keep someone comfortable. Lao Tzu said, "Silence is a source of great strength." And this is that strength, not loud, not aggressive, but undeniable. Because when someone finally realizes your value in your silence, they're not discovering something new, they're recognizing something they once had and failed to honor. And by then, you're no longer waiting for them to catch up. Part 3. When they come back, but you're not the same. The message you stopped expecting, the call you once waited for, the sudden shift in their tone, softer, more intentional, almost unfamiliar, they come back. Not always dramatically, not always with grand gestures. Sometimes it's subtle, a simple, "I miss you," or "I've been thinking about you." But beneath those words is something deeper. Regret. Because time has done what you couldn't. It showed them your absence in ways your presence never could. Albert Camus once wrote, "Real generosity toward the future lies in giving all to the present." And they didn't. They held back. They delayed effort. They assumed there would always be time. Now they're standing in the consequences of that assumption. And for a moment, it feels like everything you once wanted is finally happening. They see you, they value you, they're trying. But here's the quiet truth no one prepares you for. By the time they come back, you've changed. Not in a loud, dramatic way, but internally, deeply. You've learned what it feels like to be alone and survive it. You've rebuilt your self-worth without their validation. You've sat with your pain long enough that it transformed into clarity. And clarity changes your standards. So when they return, you're not the same person who once begged for understanding. You're someone who now observes, someone who listens, but also feels the weight of everything that wasn't done before. Carl Jung said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." And you chose growth. You chose self-respect. You chose to stop accepting half-hearted versions of love. So now, when they try to step back into your life, they're not meeting the old you. They're meeting someone who no longer needs them. And that's where the real shift happens. Because their realization came from losing you, but your transformation came from finding yourself. And those two things don't always align. Sometimes they come back ready to love you properly, but you've already learned how to live without them. Part 4. The final truth. Why too late changes everything forever. There's a quiet finality to too late that most people don't understand until they live through it, because too late doesn't just mean missed timing. It means something inside you has already closed. Not out of anger, not out of ego, but out of understanding. You see, when someone realizes your value too late, the story doesn't rewind. It doesn't reset back to how things were. Time didn't just pass, it changed you. Friedrich Nietzsche once said, "What was silent in the Father speaks in the Son, and often I found in the Son the unveiled secret of the Father." In the same way, what was ignored in your past begins to speak through your present awareness. You remember. Not obsessively, but clearly. You remember how you felt when your effort went unnoticed, how your words felt heavy because they weren't received, how you questioned your worth just to keep someone in your life. And now you don't question anymore. That's the difference. Because once self-respect is built, it doesn't negotiate with familiarity. Even if they've changed, even if they've grown, even if they finally see you the way you deserve to be seen all along, There will always be a quiet voice inside you asking, why did it take losing me for you to value me? And that question changes everything. It creates a distance that effort alone can't always close. Because love isn't just about realization, it's about timing. It's about consistency. It's about choosing someone while you still have them, not after they've learned to live without you. Seneca once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." But this isn't imagination. This is reality teaching its most unforgiving lesson, that some things are only understood after they are no longer available. And by then, the connection isn't the same, not because love disappeared, but because the version of love that once existed required a version of you that no longer exists. So, if you're listening to this, and you've been the one who stayed too long, who gave too much, who waited for someone to finally see your worth, understand this: their realization is not your responsibility, and their regret is not your burden to carry. Because your value was never hidden, it was simply unrecognized by the wrong eyes at the wrong time. And the moment you truly understand that, you stop needing closure from them. You become it. So don't wait for someone to realize your worth too late. Choose yourself early, because the right people won't need to lose you to understand what you mean. If this spoke to something real inside you, then you already know. Some lessons don't come from being loved right. They come from being valued too late.